Is it going? I think it's going. I hope it's going. I think it's going. All right. So the things that one of the key questions we have right now is um, the the roles that we play as people every day, and how often are we our true authentic self, and how often we lie, and ultimately when are we putting on performance? What's real? What's that sort of thing. And so that's something to be thinking about as we proceed. And there's two poems that I'm asking you to look at. So think about choices and how choices might play into action. I gave it to you as something to help us think about the semester. And they are, believe it or not, choices is kind of linked to the songs that we listen to. A little less up tempo for sure, but they're cousins. Hopefully you can see they're related. Um, and so you want to be thinking about how that poem and then we grow accustomed to the dark, how those two poems kind of play into our reading as well. And we're going to work with those. Possibly next time it might be. Also within your homework are some terms, some words, some vocabulary, thematic ideas, motifs that will occur over the course of action and that will then also apply. And so I'm asking you to kind of play with those a little bit and see where they fit together and maybe where they don't. And then read up to the parts that I'm asking you to read to for the preparation for. And then even then on Monday, at this point, I'm not quite sure what that day is going to look like yet, because the anytime we have an inauguration, the speech is hard to ignore as an English teacher, or the poem is hard to ignore. And I want to give us an opportunity to take a look at the poem from yesterday. It's a powerful piece, and there's actually some elements that relate to. There's some allusions in there that reflect things that we've discussed, which is kind of cool. And so let's take a look at the poem and the poem. Youngest poet laureate ever, 22 years old, which is just absolutely incredible. Um, so how does he get to that point? 22. 22. Do any of you have siblings who are like that age? Can you imagine? Can you imagine? 22. It's incredible. So she is committed to connecting literacy to the project of democracy. She considers reading and writing to be instruments of social change. And they are. So literacy is, actually, what I should say is illiteracy. So not being able to read or write and think about what it is that you're reading and writing is it's a national security, believe it or not. And so think about the power of see, literacy and illiteracy are national security. See, her mother is an English teacher, began writing poems as a child. Finding her voice to see several words on the page where other young poets turn inward, she draws inspiration from events in the news. She's responding to current events. In an interview, she explains that in did some writing. Yeah. And we're looking at the course. Traversing between these worlds, either go to a private school in Malibu or then come back home to my family's two-bedroom apartment, give me an appreciation for different cultures and reality. There you are. Give me an appreciation for different cultures and reality. But also, lost it, made me feel like an outsider. I'm sure my single mother Joe Wicks might describe me as a precocious child, but looking back in elementary school, I often describe myself as a plain weird child. I spent most of elementary school convinced that I was an alien, literally. So, I mean, she sounds fascinating. We're going to actually listen to her in a couple of weeks. Remarkable journey for Miss Gorman who traveled from feeling like an alien to become the first youth poet of Los Angeles. And that, just that statement in and of itself makes me think of the transformative nature of representation. And how we looked at Snowy Day or last month. I've got a black student in class who talked about how and it felt a little bit like he was kind of avoiding it, addressing that, the protagonist within that story. And then when I pointed it out, then he remembered, oh yeah, my mom read that story a lot to us because of the and it makes me think too about Black Panther and the power of Black Panther for Black people. And the end of that film, for those of you who are familiar with Black Panther, and kind of the promise and the hope of Wakanda opening up and sharing things with the community. So, like an alien becoming the first youth poet of Los Angeles, 3 years later, the first national youth poet laureate, and now the youngest inaugural poet in U.S. history. So let's take a look at her TikTok here. And I want you to be thinking about, as we listen to her and watch her, what does she say that stands out to you? Have you encountered poetry that, like the example she gives, has something interesting to say about politics and democracy? What examples come to mind? Nikki Giovanni is a similar style poet. Nikki Giovanni responds to current events and personal events as well. Nikki Giovanni created a poem out of the Virginia Tech. She was a professor at Virginia Tech, and so it was a very personal moment for her. And so, we may be looking at some more Nikki Giovanni as we approach the years as well. Giovanni does, after all, have a fun life. And then how about you answer her key questions? So her key questions are, whose shoulders do you stand on, and what do you stand for? Let me, share that chat instead. I'm not presenting it. Yeah, presentation is one of them. There's some hiccup that's going on with sharing. So do go ahead and close the camera to make it a little bit easier.
I have 2 questions for you. One, whose shoulders do you stand on? And two, what do you stand for? These are two questions that I always begin my poetry workshop with students because at times poetry can seem like this dead art form for like old white men who just seem like they were born to be old, like Benjamin Button or something. And I ask my students these two questions, and then I share how I answer them, which is in these three sentences that go, I am the daughter of black writers who descended from freedom fighters who broke their chains and changed the world. They call me. And these are words I repeat in a mantra before every single poetry performance. In fact, I was like doing it in the corner over there, I was making faces. And so I repeat them to myself as a way to gather myself because I'm not sure if you know, but public speaking is pretty terrifying. I know I'm on stage and I have my heels, I look all glam, but I'm horrified. Uh, and the way in which I kind of strengthen myself is by having this mantra. Most of my life, I was particularly terrified of speaking up because I had a speech impediment, which made it difficult to pronounce some letters, sounds, and I felt like I was fine writing on the page. But once I got on stage, I was worried my words would jumble and stumble. What was the point in trying not to mumble these thoughts in my head if everything's already been said? But finally, I had a moment of realization where I thought if I choose not to speak out of fear, then there's no one that my silence is standing. And so I came to realize I cannot stand standing to the side, standing silent. I must find the strength to speak up. And one of the ways I do that is through this mantra, what I call back to what I call honorary ancestors. These are people who might not be related to you by blood or by birth, but who are more than worth saying their names because you stand on the shoulders all the same. It is only from the height of these shoulders that we might have the sight to see the mighty power of poetry, the power of language made accessible, expressible. Poetry is interesting because not everyone is going to become a great poet, but anyone can be and anyone can enjoy poetry. And it's this openness, this accessibility of poetry that makes it the language of people. Poetry has never been the language barrier. It's always been the language of wisdom. And it's this connection making that makes poetry, yes, powerful, but it also makes it political. One of the things that irritates me to no end is when I get that phone call, it's usually from a white man, and he says, "Man, Amanda, we love your poetry. We'd love to get you to write a poem about this subject, but don't make it political." Which to me sounds like I have to draw a square, or not make it a rectangle, or like build a car, and not make it a vehicle. It doesn't make much sense because all art is political. The decision to create, the artistic choice to have a voice, the choice to be heard, is the most political act of all. And by political, I mean poetry is political in at least three ways. One, what stories we tell, when we're telling them, how we're telling them, if we're telling them, why we're telling them, says so much about the political beliefs we have on what types of stories matter. Secondly, who gets to have those stories told? I'm talking who is legally allowed to read, who has the resources to be able to write, who are we reading in our classrooms. Says a lot about the political and educational systems that all these stories and storytellers exist in. Lastly, poetry is political because it's preoccupied with people. If you look at history, notice that tyrants often go after the poets and the creatives first. They burn books, they try to get rid of poetry, the language arts, because they're terrified. Poets have this phenomenal potential to connect the beliefs of the private individual with the cause of change of the public, the population, the polity, the political movement. And when you leave here, I really want you to try to hear the ways in which poetry is actually at the center on those political questions about what it means to be a democracy. Maybe later you're going to be at a protest and someone's going to have a poster that says, they buried us, but they didn't know we were seeing. That's poetry. You might be in your U.S. history class and your teacher may play a video of Martin Luther King Jr. saying, we will be able to hew out of this mountain of despair a stone of hope. That's poetry. Or maybe even here in New York City, you're going to go visit the Statue of Liberty, where there's a sonnet that declares, as Americans, give us your tired, you huddled masses yearning to be free. So you see, when someone asks me to write a poem that's not political, what they're really asking me is to not ask charged and challenging questions in my poetic work. And that does not work because poetry is always at the pulse of the most dangerous and the most daring questions that a nation or a world might face. What past do we stand on as a people, and what future as a people do we stand for? And the thing about poetry is that it's not really about having the right answers, it's about asking these right questions about what it means to be a writer doing right by your words and your actions. And my reaction is to pay honor to those shoulders of people who use their pens to roll over boulders so I might have a mountain of hope on which to stand, so that I might understand the power of telling stories that matter no matter what, that I might realize that if I choose not out of fear, but out of courage to speak, then there's something unique that my words can become. And all of a sudden, that fear that my words might jumble and stumble go away as I'm humbled by the thoughts of thousands of stories a long time coming that I know are strumming inside me as I celebrate those people in your time who stood up so this little black girl could rhyme, as I celebrate and call their names all the same. These people who seem like they were just born to behold. Maya Angelou, Intersaki Shange, Phyllis Wheatley, Lucille Clifton, Gwendolyn Brooks, Joan Wicks, Audre Lorde, and so many more. It might feel like every story has been told before, but the truth is, no one's ever told my story in the way I would tell it as the daughter of black writers who descended from freedom fighters who broke the chains and changed the world. They call me. I call them. And one day I'll write a story right, by writing it into tomorrow on this earth more than worth standing for.
But she is pretty awesome. Think about those questions. What does she say that stands out to you? What did she say that stands out? I got pretty excited.
Said that all art is political? I thought that was.
All art is political. What else? Yeah.
I liked her quote, they buried us, but they didn't know that we were seeds. I thought that was super cool.
I like that too. They buried us because they didn't know we were seeds. What else?
I like how she mentioned it's not about all the eloquent words or writing like the answer, it's about asking the right questions. Because I think a lot of like when we're struggling through poetry, like we don't get it. But it's because we're struggling with like the questions that it's asking us, not are we trying to find the people.
Well, and besides nicely done article, what questions are we asking? Did you catch what she said about who can be a poet? Anyone can be a poet. Is everybody going to hear her? Especially if all art is political. If the idea of being the hero, if you can be a hero by saving an idea or a people, how does art save an idea or people? And why are the artists the first ones that tyrants go away? Tyrants, authoritarians, fascists. Have you encountered poetry that, like the example she gives, has something interesting to say about politics and democracy? I mean, certainly a lot of art. Give me you think about them? There were the two that I had you work with last time, or a couple weeks ago.
My favorite poem is If by Rudyard Kipling.
Oh, yeah.
Because that talks about like saying all these scenarios, if you keep your head up when it's going crazy and you're doing this and you're doing this, then at the end of the day you'll be a man. It's defining what a man is, or could even be what a hero is.
Well, it comes from an era of questioning what is manliness. Well, yes, others?
I guess I just thought about how she talked about like those before her and the stories of them and how they brought like the country to what it is, poetry to what it is, and I just thought of like heroes and like their whole story and hero story that keeps being told.
Absolutely. Yeah. So think about those shoulders. Whose shoulders do you stand on? What do you stand for? How do you answer those? That's what we want the person to get into. So certainly I stand on the shoulders of my father, his father, my uncle. Stand on yours too. I stand on your shoulders. You still teach me things. Lots of things. Let me think about it. Occasional poetry, obviously, occasional poetry documents, reflects upon your own. There are some samples, some models here, but in the interest of time, we're not going to look at them all. But all of them want to take you to those poems. So we've got the charge of the language, the daily jar, we get let's see here, giving outright. So since that's an inaugural, we'll take a look at that. Presidents typically take hands off the coach and hold the position. President Kennedy recommended a position to the last. I'm going to share the link so I don't have to necessarily share the screen. So, think about our time and place. It is 1961. We're in the midst of the Cold War. President Kennedy is about to say, the home file, or does it come before that file? Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. The land was ours before we were the land. It was our land more than 100 years before we were her. She was ours in Massachusetts, in Virginia, but we were England, still colonial, possessing what we still were unpossessed by. Possessed by what we now no more possess. Something we were withholding made us weak until we found out that it was ourselves. We were withholding from our land of living, and forthwith found salvation in surrender. Think about that withholding, think about the dragon, think about the dragon that's in you that holds you back. Such as we were, we gave ourselves outright. That Anything in particular stand out from that one?
Well, the way that he went able to change wood to will seems like it's unfinished because wood seems like it has become like wood becomes like it's already something, but then will become seems like it has more growth to go on in the future. It shows that like whenever it's done growing really.
Okay. Anything else? Richard Blanco actually spoke at one of the 18 scoring days, so they will bring in poets and authors and literature speak to the scorers during the 18 scoring. And so Richard Blanco came. I can't remember if he read one today or not. But if we've got time, we'll come back. So Ms. Gorman proposed In This Place, an American lyric, performed in the Library of Congress from Tracy Smith's installation as U.S. Poet Laureate. And so there's poetry written for poets. After watching Dr. Christine Blasey Ford testify at the confirmation hearing with Justice Brett Kavanaugh, she wrote, "We run." She described that experience and read the poem in an interview, and so you've got access to these links if you're interested. But I want to get to the poem. Ms. Gorman was contacted by the Biden inaugural committee in late December. She was given no specific instructions on what to write, but was urged to focus on unity and hope. She had written most of the inaugural poem before the January 6th siege at the U.S. Capitol, but stayed awake late into the night to finish adding verses about the apocalyptic scene that unfolded at the Capitol that day. So think about it. If you're asked to write a poem to speak to this moment by an inauguration committee, the things that are happening right now, what are some of the things that you might want to communicate? What would you want to say? I try as often as I can to be able to speak to the moment through the things that we're doing. It's vital that you be able to make those connections and see those things right now. Both within yourself and in the world at large. How do you convey hope under our current circumstances? Hope and unity. So let's give her a watch. Oh, boo. I've got it. Don't worry. Oh, don't worry. Oh, there. So, let's just try this. Oh, what? Oh, it needs to know which one. Very funny.
Mr.
Got it. I got it now. Go ahead and turn off the camera. You can hopefully we can mitigate some of the problems going on there. What else I want to do? No, we'll look at it. Um, oh,
President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country in the time, were a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother, can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to look up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all of the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we ask, how can we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but full, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our younger becomes their burden. But one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than one we were left with every breath from our bronze pounded chest. We will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold hills of the west. We will rise from the windswept northeast where our forefathers first realized evolution. We will rise from the lake wind cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover every known nook of our nation and every corner called our country, our people diverse and beautiful will emerge battered and beautiful when day comes. We step out of the shade of flame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there was always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
So interestingly, very interestingly, there's a chunk that is missing from the transcript that I have. And it's a couple of stanzas, but it's ultimately in terms of transcript that we have, it's a fair enough piece. It's maybe 3, 4 lines possibly. So let's take a look at it. And ultimately, they don't even include the new president in the introduction. So that's we're on line. Was that? No. Did you notice that there's so you have a transcript that had everything?
It didn't have like the beginning part, but besides that, it has everything. So, yeah.
So read through it. And I do want to point out that line. Oh, and I don't know why in the world so on the physical copy that you have, great. Great. what are the things that you have noticed, you're wondering about, you're asking about, consider those 9 questions on the agenda. What strikes you? What do you want to point out? Mhm.
Well, a lot of like that is put together.
Okay. Do you have a spot?
Like when they say, and so we list our views, it's like looking into the future for hope, but then also doing that by having unity.
Okay, good. What other things do you notice?
So the first, I don't know where to do that, but because being American is more than a pride being parent, it's a practice that we can already it reminds me of like whose shoulders we stand on.
Okay. Is there a line that you just absolutely love? Did you say all of them? Yeah.
I really like the line, somehow we've weathered and witnessed it. I think that's so powerful because there's so much division between the country right now.
Mhm.
We're not broken, we're just trying to so work on
Right. Where was that?
it. It's in the
Ah, I see it. Yep. Well, that, and then we get the reference to the Constitution, the preamble to the Constitution. And on the document you have just like 2 stanzas down, but it's ultimately 2 sentences later. Yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we're striving to form a union that is perfect. More perfect union. We cannot hit perfect.
As we close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must put our differences aside. That just reminds me, like, no one can push their own, everyone can't push their own agenda because we're not going to get anything done that way.
Right.
So we have to put our differences aside in order to move forward in some way.
Right. Good. Did you catch any other allusions?
I don't know if you saw this on Twitter. She tweeted that she had 2 Hamilton references in there.
Oh, did she? What were they?
Well, I found one. It was History Has Its Eyes on You.
Okay.
I couldn't figure out the other one was though.
Okay. We've got a reference to Lincoln. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. And I think it's the second inaugural address that Lincoln delivers, where he says, with malice toward none. And of course, the hero's journey with the belly of the beast. It could be, yeah. I mean, it's ultimately part of the hero's journey, one story. And so, Jonah and the whale, Pinocchio, Finding Nemo, the lowest point. An addict hitting their absolute low. That's the belly of the beast. Any other things that you want to point out? How about the hill? And of course, the light. The hill and the light are 2 important elements.
I don't know if this has any religious context, but it says Scripture tells us to envision that everyone
think that's a the other Hamilton as well. Isn't that somewhere in there?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I've never read Hamilton.
Yeah, it is biblical as well. Yes, and it's also part of the hero's journey. And unfortunately, it's also what Thanos is going for.
Yeah, it's 10:11. There's our bell. You guys have a great weekend. And take a look at that other stuff. And we'll hang on with it. Definitely hang on with it. We'll come back.
Have a good one, Mr. Crosby.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.